color me naive, but when I posted this question here on YouTube recently, I didn't expect the results that I got. I know not math isn't everyone's favorite subject, but those results, they left my mouth, jaw open. I didn't know that people dislike math that much. It got me thinking about some different ways that I can help you enjoy teaching math more, and how I can help you help your kids enjoy math more, so that you have a homeschool that subject that you, if you don't come to love it, at least you wouldn't have to be polishing your silver. Through our 12 years of homeschooling now, I have learned a few tips that have helped me to become a better math teacher and help me enjoy teaching math better. So those are what I want to share with you today. Now, my first tip is about whiteboards. A lot of kids and adults too, when you ask them to put things onto paper, it feels permanent in a way that whiteboards do not. So we do now most of our math problem solving on a whiteboard. We have one that hangs up, and then I have a couple of these small ones. I bought these on Rainbow Resource, and I will try to link it. Try to remember to link it. One side is just whiteboard, and the second side has graph paper, which I'm going to talk about. That's tip number 2. So anyway, this is where we do most of our things. There is something about the quick erasability of whiteboards that for some kids make them more willing to just put things down and to try things. That isn't true when they are doing it on paper themselves. Also, we used to go through a lot of scratch paper. We don't so much anymore now. So whiteboards, number 1. My second tip is about graph paper. If you have a student who has a hard time, for example, in long division, you can hear that my dog's grabbed a bone and is enjoying it right next to the camera. I apologize. I'll try to cut out that as much as I can. Anyway, if you have a kid who has, for example, trouble lining up their numbers well, multi-digit multiplication, long division, that sort of thing, or a child whose numbers just tend to get smushed together when they write, graph paper, whether it's on a whiteboard or actual paper, can be a lifesaver, because it forces them to get their numbers one in a box. I like this one because it's nice and big. If you use graph paper, actual paper, you just want to look for some that's big enough that the size of the box isn't going to add an extra layer of frustration to your child. Some of those graph papers can be really small. If you have a child who doesn't write small, that's not going to make things any easier. So anyway, my middle kiddo, this is a trick that we discovered with him, and it helped so much, because when he was first learning multi-digit addition, for example, his numbers wouldn't line up well because, well, for him, there's handwriting issues, but some kids just have a hard time with that, right? So give them something that just makes it a little easier for them. And then once you've taken out the frustration of their numbers not lining up, then they can focus on learning the skill that you're teaching them. But if they are struggling with lining those numbers up and trying to learn how to do long division, that is a recipe for disaster. And if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're both going to end up in tears. Tip number 3 is not about a resource. But when you are doing the teaching and you ask your kid, the answer, and they're trying to figure it out, often, and I say this from experience, we feel like if they don't answer quickly, then then we've just wasted the last 15 minutes and now we're frustrated. But sometimes kids really need more thinking time than what we can give them. Whether they need to figure out, like recall the different skills they need, or just figure out how to take the skills that they can put in their brain, but they're not sure how to apply it. Whatever it is, that extra thinking time, often they need. In the same vein, they also need, I firmly believe this, time to wrestle with their problems. Meaning, if they don't get it right the first time, speaking from experience, again, I want to just show them what to do. But that's not increasing their frustration tolerance or your own. You're jumping in and helping them. And that's fantastic. They need the help often, right? But sometimes they're going to get there. They just have to figure out how to get there. And that process of learning to solve the problem and to keep going back and looking and figuring out where they made their mistake, I promise it will pay off in the long run if they have more of that time when they're young. My daughter is, 11th grade. She finished pre-calc this last semester. She's taking statistics this semester, and I see how much that's paid off for her. 7th grade, she did algebra, and I remember when we would do the word problems about like someone's going upstream and someone's going downstream, those kind of word problems. I could just remember the tears from both of us as we tried to solve the problem. And I would kind of prompt her sooner than what she needed. Like she needed me to just kind of step back a little bit. And through that year of algebra, I saw such not just natural maturity growing, but also the more I stood back and let her wrestle with things, the more she tolerated being frustrated. So if you have a kiddo, especially who is quick to frustration, or you yourself are quick to frustration, learning to allow a little bit more time before you step in or before you let yourself get frustrated is going to pay off for both of you. And my last tip is one that I resisted for years because I believed that they just needed to have this information in their head. That once I taught it, it should just be up there. That's ideal. But for some kids, they just need a little more. Not because they're not smart, but because they've just got so much in their brain, or learning to find what's in the brain and how to apply it and stuff. It could just be a lot. So a few years ago, I started using a resource board. Now it came about because of multiplication. My middle kiddo, he is good at it. He doesn't like it, but he's good at it. But quick recall of math facts, I can't tell you how frustrated it brought me when he was younger. And I got to the point where I was complaining about it, and someone said, why not just give him a chart? I'm like, because he should know it. Yeah, he should, in theory, because of all the practice we've done, he should just have them in his brain. I learned them quickly when I was young. My daughter learned them quickly when she was young. Him, it just had to be stubbornness. No, it wasn't stubbornness, but I believed it. Or I believed he wasn't trying, or whatever other negative thing I wanted to put in there. Long story short, once I gave him a multiplication chart, knowing that he knew how to multiply, like what it actually meant, and it was just a matter of quick recall of multiplication facts, I cannot tell you how much better math went. We went from both of us crying most days during the time when I first brought this out to most days we left math with a smile, because he could focus on the harder skills and know that he could look back at this with no shame, no guilt, no me not giving him a look because he should just know it. he could do this. It made a world of difference. Now, what goes on here changes based on what we're doing. Right now, I've got perfect squares and perfect cubes because we're working on exponents and factoring exponents and such. So this has been a huge help. Multiplication chart, another page of exponents. These are all squares up to 50. And then my youngest had requested a chart that just had vocabulary words that relate to different math problems, like different orders of operation, like what does it mean when you say product, or anyway, we put that on here. There are days when you don't need like the multiplication chart or the perfect squares because seeing it enough has helped him solidify it. But there are other days when he just does, and that's okay. Calculators and the computers now, kids don't need to know the recall as much as when we were younger because they've got the resources. But the thinking and the logic skills, that's what I really want to focus on. And so, resource board, that's it. Now, if you want one other tip that's made a huge difference in our math teaching, head over to the video you see right over there. I'll see you over there.